Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Akinfora. I'm the host of the show, Health and Wellness in Bayonne, and today I have with me Justin Frimmel of Cross Fit Bayonne. We're so excited to have you, Justin. How are you?
Great, how are you?
Good. So we had a little preamble before and just going over certain things, So tell me a little bit more about your journey. Like, how did you get to be affiliated with CrossFit? Tell us about your journey.
Well, I've been in Bayonne my entire life, born and raised. Went to school around here with the exception of college. But as I was graduating college, I kind of had a need to fulfill certain physical demands in terms of, athletics. It had been a while since I was out of sports, so I needed something to fill that void.
Sure.
I had began marathon running as kind of a hobby. Sure. But what I found was that I was getting injured. There was no real joy in running itself.
Sure.
And then I just kind of proceeded on trying to find what fit my personality best.
Sure.
I had an appreciation for people that were very strong.
Yep.
But I never really wanted to gain that type of same size that those folks had achieved.
Right. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Stetson University. It's down in Central Florida. Central
Florida, very nice. So you were out of Bayonne and then they dragged you back in.
Yes.
So tell me, how were you introduced to CrossFit? Like, where did that intro come in?
Well, it's actually by accident. I was studying jiu-jitsu at a local gym, and I noticed that there was a gentleman who I had never seen before, and he was basically tearing the floor apart. Anyone that he was competing with was just getting strewn about, and he had what seemed like boundless amounts of energy.
Wow.
I was sitting on the side watching him, and I asked a friend of mine, what does he do other than this? And he said, well, CrossFit. So I immediately started taking an interest in it. I searched around for the nearest gym, and I immediately went to a free class. Yep. Most CrossFit gyms do provide that, and from there I was hooked.
Awesome. And how long ago was that around?
That was about 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Yep. So you've done CrossFit ever since that day.
Yes.
And when did you come back to Bayonne? How long ago was that?
I came back in 2009.
2009.
Yep.
Did you have designs on, hey, let me think about opening a CrossFit gym in Bayonne? What were your thoughts when you came home?
When I came home, I was just doing regular 9-to-5 gig. I worked in an accounting department. Sure. But again, just like marathon running, there's no joy in that.
There's no joy in the accounting department.
Nope.
Anywhere, any accounting department. So tell me, obviously the entrepreneur bug grabbed you, and you have the passion for what it is that you do. And so how'd you go about becoming an affiliate of CrossFit?
Well, I mean, after speaking with multiple people, I decided it was best to just jump in. It requires a sort of a formal letter and an application to CrossFit headquarters. Okay. I went through with that. About a month later, they responded and said that my affiliation had been granted. Yep. So then it was just a matter of finding the correct location. Cool.
And there were several locations that you had looked at, and you finally settled on one on Broadway, that's correct?
Yep, we had a few industrial areas marked out, but unfortunately that did not work for kind of the timeline and what we were looking for in terms of space.
Sure, all things happen for a reason. Anyway, I've been into the space. It's phenomenal. It speaks CrossFit. So what everybody needs to know is, what exactly is CrossFit?
Well, by definition, it is constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity. But you'll talk to someone about that and they kind of glaze over because it sounds just like a lot of
technical fluff. Yes. Yeah. So what does it really mean?
For me, and it does differ depending on which gym you go to. For me personally, it is a strength and conditioning program. Yep. We revolve most things around three main movements: a squat, a press, and a deadlift. And we train those regularly, at least once a week in terms of a linear strength program. Sure. And basically what that means is we establish a heavy triple, single for squat, press, deadlift, and we work with percentages of that number to try and build maximal strength.
Sure. So just go back for folks, a triple or single, meaning 1 rep max is correct?
Yes, a 1 rep max, a 3 rep max.
Sure, absolutely. The funny thing is, before I was a chiropractor, I was an exercise physiologist, and I had the opportunity to intern at one of the Olympic Research Training Centers. So biomechanics is a strong suit for me. But one of the things that used to make me crazy in going to the gym is seeing the same people doing the same thing all the time and not getting any results and or getting hurt. That doesn't happen in CrossFit.
No, not with me. We actually, the greatest part about kind of our gym is that we have a very intimate group.
Yes.
We're all very familiar with each other. I know all of my members' problems.
Yes.
You know, tennis elbow, bad knees, bad back, previous like shoulder dislocations.
Sure.
And we take that into consideration when they're doing their workouts. So we have an opportunity to scale their workouts. We have an opportunity to tailor the movement so that they stay out of pain. And we can, on the side, work on whatever type of ailment they're dealing with.
Sure. The other thing that I see is, especially looking on YouTube at CrossFit videos, is the results from that, by basically high intensity training, are phenomenal. I mean, that's what we were designed to do. We're meant to go for short periods of time and then we're done.
Right.
The marathon running, you know, there are very few people genetically who are meant to run marathons. It's not in the genetic makeup of who we are. So tell me a little bit more. I noticed in a lot of my research on CrossFit is there's names that are predominantly females for workout of the day, or WOD. Why is that?
Well, a long time ago, the owner and founder of CrossFit headquarters, Greg Glassman, explained that anything that leaves you on the ground gasping for air and wondering what happened to you should only have the name of a woman.
I love that. That is hysterical.
It is great, but what we actually use the girls for is kind of a benchmark to see how you're doing.
Right.
So when we had first opened, we were doing them regularly.
Yep.
But after a while, you know, there's only like 15 or so girl workouts.
Yep.
After that, it's sort of back to work.
Right.
To see how the actual training is working for you.
Right, absolutely, and you know that's what benchmarks are for. You look at a benchmark, and then you may look at that benchmark again in 3 months or 2 weeks or wherever you set your benchmarks up to see how well the training you're adapting to the training, which is really cool.
Right.
We went over that. So let me ask you a couple other questions regarding CrossFit. What I really like the most about it, in addition to the training, and what you really don't see in any other gym, is the sense of community CrossFitters have. Could you explain that a little bit more? Like, it's just a really neat phenomenon.
Absolutely. Well, just like I was saying, we are an intimate group.
Yep.
There's about 60 or so members as of right now. We're about 12 weeks old.
Yep.
So these folks see each other somewhere between 3 and 6 times a week, depending on how often they come.
Sure.
They usually come to the same classes every week, every day. So they really do get familiar with each other, and their successes become each other's successes.
Sure.
So it's really easy to get on board with someone that you see and train with every day, and they have a great day and a huge success in terms of maybe they were struggling previously with a lift, or they've been just kind of tweaking things, and it's starting to click all of a sudden. But it's just very easy to just get behind that and start getting very excited for other people.
Sure. Tell me about some of the successes that you've seen already in this short period of the birth of CrossFit Bayonne in these 12 weeks. Tell us some of the successes you've already seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a few members who have begun to kind of reverse a little bit of metabolic derangement. We are working with Bayonne Chiropractic in order to kind of aid that with some paleo supplementation. Sure. But as of right now, the strength training and the conditioning has done a great job.
Sure.
And it will.
Yep.
You can never escape a bad diet, but it is a great aid.
Sure.
Along with that, we've seen 5K times decrease. We had 2 members run a half marathon. One who had never run previously and doesn't run.
Okay.
Did it in 1 hour and 47 minutes, which is fairly good for someone that's never run before.
Somebody's never run it before, it is.
And we had another member who took a solid 20 minutes off of her half marathon time.
That's 20 minutes?
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
Very cool.
It's only been, 10, 12 weeks.
Sure. That's wild. For the beginner, let's talk a little bit about that. You and I have had this discussion. Talk to me if, like, for example, you had 15 people come in at the same time. The beginner, like an on-ramp class or a more individualized attention, how do you address that? Like, what do you do as the trainer, owner of a facility? What would you do?
Yeah, absolutely. We start with kind of very basic movements. Depending on what the workout may be, it's always essential to establish a squat, in my opinion. It is the best expression of athleticism in anyone. So if there's something wrong with it, we got to fix it.
Right.
After that, we'll work on simple pulling and pressing mechanics for a standard deadlift or an overhead press. And that's kind of like the 3 things that we build off of. If we're doing a workout that requires a little bit more, in maybe a thruster, which is a squat into a press, we may break it down to say, well, let's just work on the squat for now, and then we'll start building on that later.
Right, so you look at the components of the actual exercise and break it down to make it easier for them to succeed, obviously.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, this is the brilliant thing about how CrossFit's been set up that works like a charm. Typically, when a person goes and joins a gym, let's just say they say, oh, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. That's very common. They join January 1st. Do you know the date that they quit, the average person?
No.
It's basically the day of the Super Bowl. They last for that long, and then everything goes out the window because there's no sense of community. There's nothing there to hold them. So what we found when I did my undergraduate degree was that if you don't have a partner to go work out with, the failure rate, the stickiness of it, the stick-to-itiveness drops down to 10%. Only 10%. Now I know with CrossFit, there's the community. So you're accountable to all those other people who always see you, and that's where you get that community-based workout, which works so well.
Right, exactly. And I mean, we've even had instances where people will disappear for a few days. Maybe they go on vacation and no one realized it, and folks start calling each other out like, "Hey, where you been?"
Right.
And you even notice it. The guys that have been gone for a while, it's like, "Wow, I've really been missing because I'm getting passed up."
Right.
And it's just get back to work.
And get back to work. That's amazing. Right now, you are the lead trainer and only trainer?
Yes, I am the employee.
You are the employee. Excellent. As you grow, as with any successful entity, you'll have to look to bring other people in to serve more people or serve more classes.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep. As of right now, I think it's a very manageable situation.
Yep.
I'm excited to be there every day.
Yep.
I love my guys. They do a great job, and I'm happy to be there to work with them. But in the event that we do need to spread our wings a little bit and bring some more people on, there's always folks that are being looked at to be that next leader.
Sure. And like other CrossFit gyms that I've been to, you do, if somebody were to request, you also do the personal session or personal training with them if somebody were to request that?
At this time, we don't actually have personal training requests. What I suggest to people, and I've been suggesting it since the beginning, is that they come on in and we can work around whatever they're going through right now. Because the program is made so that anyone, a well-bodied, able individual, can come in and successfully complete a workout with maybe a little bit of scaling down so that they can get a better hold of the intensity. But in my mind, there's no real need to get that personal training just yet. With that said, before you attempt any type of physical exertion, you should see your physician and make sure that that's a good situation for you.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit what we touched on earlier. So somebody comes in and it's high intensity training and they're going home, they're eating crappy food. Talk about results. Like, what's going to happen in the event that they're doing all this hard work, but they're not following through with the other stuff?
Absolutely. Well, diet and nutrition is a huge portion of what we believe marks a successful CrossFit experience. And even though most folks can get really into the strength piece or the high intensity Metcon piece, it's really hard to go home and be like, let me continue this by eating really clean.
Right.
And by clean, I mean meats, vegetables, a little bit of fruit, seeds, and a high fat diet.
Right.
So basically, it's hard to kind of babysit people and let them know, like, you need to be doing this when you go home if you want to see maximal results.
Sure.
But if you really are invested in the whole situation, then you really need to take that into consideration.
Absolutely. And our audience knows that on our end, our mission is to educate, empower, inspire our community. So what we've seen in chiropractic is very similar. That's where CrossFit, paleo, chiropractic, they all fit together, in so much that we come in and we address the nervous system, but if they're not eating healthy, or they're not exercising, or even sleeping well, or having negative thoughts all day, that really overrides a lot of what we do. And it's very similar to what you're saying. Like, if you're training really hard and you're getting 3 hours of sleep a night, you're just never going to recover.
Right.
And that's the problem. If you're going home and you're eating, just bad food, you're not going to recover. You're not going to make the gains that everybody else is. And that's why we decided, myself, Dr. DeCoya, and CrossFit Bayonne with you, decided to partner together and offer the community at large and the CrossFit community a chance to understand paleo a little more. So I think that's a huge step for your community and a huge step for the community at large. One of the things that you just said that I think is really important that we can't overlook is a high-fat diet. Quality fat.
Yes.
Not bad quality. Quality fat made of coconut oil, organic grass-fed butter, and olive oil, and nuts and seeds. But it's not where, years ago in my training as an exercise scientist, it was a high carbohydrate diet. This is what you wanted. And, it was okay. You could have bagels and pasta. And what we've noticed over the last 25 years is our society has gotten fatter and more obese and even more sedentary.
Right.
And that's where CrossFit comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And CrossFit's main kind of dietary suggestion is zone paleo. Most folks don't need the zone piece because they're still trying to get a hold of what kind of macronutrient ratios that they need to be taking in. So I prescribe a unweighed, unmeasured paleo approach. Just eat as much as you feel like eating, but make sure it's good for you.
Make sure it's good for you. And that's what I tell my patients specifically. Lift heavy things. Go lift heavy things. If you're taking the time to go to the gym, you've got to stress your body in a good stress to lift heavier weights. And one of the things I know, because we've talked about it, that you hear all the time is for women to say, oh, I'm going to get big and bulky. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely not. Usually when someone comes in and says, I don't want to get big and bulky, I just kind of gesture over to my girlfriend and say, well, does she look big and bulky to you? And she is just an incredibly strong girl. It just doesn't happen that way. We're all sort of, at the core, we're a specific shape. I'm sort of a lean, tall guy, and I can't really escape that. But I do get a lot stronger if I work towards it.
Absolutely.
The bigger guys are going to stay a little bit bigger. They can absolutely slim down if they take that paleo approach. But the girls they're coming in 100 pounds, 5'3", they're not going to be all of a sudden like D linemen.
Yeah. And I've explained that to my wife, and she goes to the gym 5 times a week. And like, oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to get, big, giant muscles. I said, that couldn't happen for you if you went to the gym every day,
Right.
all day. It's just not going to happen. So with her body type, it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't measure out. It's not going to happen. What else you want to talk about? Like, so we've covered some of that stuff. We talked about paleo. We have a few minutes left. You've been in business for 12 weeks. Where do you see yourself in, let's say, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully Bayonne.
Very good.
I mean, when I first started this, I had options. To be honest, at the time there weren't tons of CrossFits everywhere. So it was very much up to me where I wanted to bring this.
Yes.
Bayonne's been my home for 27 years, so I figured what better place to bring it than my home.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The same thing happened to me when I was in chiropractic school. I was not sure where I wanted to wind up, and I can remember I had physically lost my wallet while I was down in Georgia, and I had to come home and get a new driver's license, and I went up to DMV on City Line and said, wow, I need to come home and help these folks. Because DMV, you know, it's kind of like that show, The Walking Dead. It's kind of frightening in there. But it was something that I felt very strongly about, and now it's 17 years later, and we can start to see the shift that's occurring, although we're in a significant minority of folks, of people looking for health and wellness. And that's why we wanted you on the show. That's why we've forged a relationship, is like-minded individuals need to stick together and take care of this community, because this is really important stuff.
Absolutely. We are the vast majority, minority,
Yep.
for the most part. But I do believe that there is a strong core of us in Bayonne who do really care about these things and just don't have the correct avenues to express
Sure.
themselves.
Sure.
So I think CrossFit Bayonne is a great way of doing that.
Yep.
What you're doing with the paleo seminars is an excellent way of doing it.
Yep.
And you know, hopefully it just spreads like wildfire. I hope folks really do take to this stuff and really do begin to care about themselves.
Absolutely. And as we've talked about the phenomenon of CrossFit, what was how's it said? Imitation is the warmest form of flattery. Like, you see a lot of the big box gyms now offering CrossFit-esque type of things. They're just imitating you guys. I mean, you were at the forefront of it.
Well, I can't speak for any of those other gyms. I've seen it in passing.
Yes.
I haven't taken too much time to look at it.
Right.
Honestly, I'm more concerned with what's going on in my own facility than them.
Right.
And sort of the cream rises to the top. I
Always.
think the best suited gym for this kind of strength and conditioning will outlast the rest of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny that you brought up that cream rises to the top. One of my good friends that I grew up with is owner of Match Fit Academy, which is a soccer academy, and it's a very prestigious soccer academy. We were talking about my daughter who plays, and she now plays travel, and she is, unlike myself, she is super fast. Like, she just runs, and it's like a leopard running. And what my friend John said was that the cream always rises to the top. No matter how, if she continues to play, she's going to only get faster if she enjoys it and is passionate about it. And that's something that you and I both can speak to, is the passion in which we do things. That the cream for her will always be at the top because she loves the game. She'll continue to play. She's playing now at a premier level, which is really, really neat to see. I think we've hit all of the points that I wanted to cover. Is there anything that you had in mind that I did not cover? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we've got it soup to nuts.
All right. Well, Andy. All right. So if anybody would like more information about CrossFit, you can contact Cross Fit Bayonne. You can contact our office. We'll be glad to give you Justin's contact information for Cross Fit Bayonne, or you can ride by on Broadway and you will find his place. And it is an honor to have you on the show. It was a blast. I told you it'd go really quickly, and it really did. Again, if you want to contact us for information about CrossFit Bayonne, you can contact the office, 201-858-0444. Be glad to give you that information, as well as any of the other folks that we've had on the show in the last couple months. So I am Dr. Mike Akinfora, the host of Health and Wellness in Bayonne. Thank you very much, and have a great day.